introduction to the civil rights movement happened when I was 9 years old. Those of you who are from Nashville would know that anytime you had to do any shopping, it didn't matter where you lived or in the area, that you had to go downtown. You either shopped on Church Street or Fifth Avenue. And the Lowe's Theater, or several theaters, were on Church Street. And so we moved into a neighborhood which was in, I guess you would call it, West Nashville. How many of you been to Sweats? Okay, well, right at the top, if you leave Sweats and you're going to Charlotte, right at the top of the hill, if you go anytime soon, you look on the southeast corner, there's a blue house that sits there. Well, I lived in that house for a couple of years, and behind us was a white family. I was 9 years old, and there was a white family, had a young son that was my age. And so that was my first time of integration, but I didn't know integration because he was just my best friend. And we played together, and cowboys and Indians and what have you. He had an older sister that got married, and she came back one day and took him to the Lowe's Theater. And he was very excited about going to the Lowe's, and when he came home, he ran over to my house, described everything that he had seen on the outside as well as the inside, and said, ask your mom to take you. So I'm excited. And so she takes me to the Lowe's Theater. As we're crossing Church Street to go to the theater, first of all, he was telling me about the ticket agency and all the good stuff, the lights flickering and the soft seats and the hot dogs and the popcorn, the smell of all of that. And so that's my mindset, is to go directly where he told me to go.
Looking for that, right?
I'm looking for it. And so as we are approaching the Lowe's Theater, crossing Church Street, I am going in this direction because that's where you get your ticket. That's where whites could get their tickets. I didn't know that just to the left was an alley where blacks had to go down the alley to get their ticket. I didn't know that. And so we're crossing the street. My mom noticed the fact that I'm going to the white section. She takes me by the wrist and said, we can't go in that way. And I looked at her and I said, but my friend said, and I stopped right there because I knew that she would take this, if I said anything other than that, there's a thing called timeout. She would have taken timeout. So I believe that at the age of 9 that a seed was planted here that said one day that I would be able to make a difference. I didn't know that. And as I talked to other friends of mine who are part of the movement, they have similar stories. And I said to the Reverend C.T. Vivian and we both agree that Nashville was a God-sent movement because any number of people had not planned to come to Nashville, but they ended up in Nashville. And back to your question as to why I joined the movement, Nashville was my hometown, and I say, why let somebody else clean up your house? Why don't you take part and help them clean up your house, or make sure that you do it, that you're a part of that?
Absolutely. I understand it actually cost you, and I may be jumping ahead a little bit, but your enrollment at TSU, that at some point after you were arrested, they actually expelled you from the school?
There were 14 of us that were expelled from A&I. But not only A&I, there were other state schools that had colored boys and girls who were expelled. Alabama State, they had any number of young people who were expelled for taking part in the civil rights movement.
So real sacrifices for you making the decision to be proactive in the community.
Yes.
So you mentioned that some part of the Nashville movement sort of happened by coincidence, simply because of the type of people that came and it wasn't planned. Can you talk a little bit more about how Nashville became a hub for the civil rights movement in the South?
After the Montgomery bus boycott, there were several ministers who advised Dr. King to go to Atlanta to start a movement, which was SCLC, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And they invited ministers from all over the South. And one of the ministers that went from Nashville was the Reverend Kelly Miller Smith. And on January the 10th, 1957, Dr. King was voted as the chairperson of SCLC. The Reverend Kelly Miller Smith was voted as the chaplain, the first chaplain of SCLC. Came back to Nashville and started an organization called NCLC, the Nashville Christian Leadership Conference. And 1 year to the date, he was voted as the chairperson of that movement. Now, the God sent part. After the bus boycott in Montgomery, Dr. King was invited throughout the United States to speak at various colleges and other places. And one of the places that he spoke was at Oberlin College. And it just so happened that a student there heard him speak by the name of Jim Lawson. And Lawson had studied, not only studied the methods of Gandhi, but he was a missionary in India for 3 years. So he studied it and he lived that life. The other thing that was so amazing about Lawson is that he came from a preaching family. His grandfather and his fathers were preachers. Lawson got his ministerial license when he was 11 years old. So after Dr. King spoke at the school, they had a reception, but it was for the faculty only, and Lawson knew the young man that was in charge of the reception. He said, "You've got to get me into this reception. I need to talk to this man," because Dr. King had studied the methods of Gandhi when he was a student at Morehouse. And so they had a conversation, and Dr. King said, "Will you forego your education and come south?" Didn't say where. He said, "Will you forego your education and come south?" He transferred to Vanderbilt University. John Lewis had not planned to come to Nashville to school. He wanted to go to Troy State, but Dr. King got him a scholarship to American Baptist Theological Seminary. Bernard Lafayette wanted to go to Florida A&M. He got his transcript in too late, and it just so happened that his grandmother knew somebody in the Baptist, the big Baptist, help me out here.
Wish I could. The World Baptist Center down.
Yes, and she knew somebody, and that's how he got into American Baptist Theological Seminary. James Bevel from Itta, Mississippi, wanted to work in Mississippi and Alabama. He was a student there. The Reverend C.T. Vivian was working in the Chicago area, and he ended up at American Baptist Theological Seminary. The Reverend Kelly Miller Smith was their teacher. So Lawson was a part of NCLC, the National Christian Leadership Conference. So as they were getting people into that organization, Lawson suggested that we have the people who were a part of NCLC would be the encompass of Nashville. Whatever Nashville was made up of, that would be a part of it. It wouldn't be an all-black organization.
I see. So at that point in your life, you're 20 years old, and you're joining these organizations, and you're meeting with these civil rights leaders. What's your mindset? What are you thinking? Are you scared? You have to be ready to suffer from physical violence. You have to be ready to be expelled from school, but it has to be scary to what you think was going to happen.
Didn't think about the expulsion. That wasn't in our DNA. But we went to the workshops. Lawson had nonviolent workshops, and he would talk to us, and for example, in parables, he would talk about different situations that he knew that were people that were lynched. And even in the workshops, we would pour water on people, and we would do the things that we expected to happen to us. So we were well versed as to what would happen to us when we went downtown Nashville. My mother even said to me, she said, "I knew that you would be a part of this because of what happened to you when you were 9 years old."
Was your mother nervous to sort of lead you to the movement in that way?
If she was, she didn't show it. I think, as I said, Nashville was a God-sent movement, and I think about, just to fast forward a little bit to the Freedom Rides. If you've seen the documentary, you will see a young lady that I graduated from high school, from Pearl High School with, by the name of Pauline Knight. She just simply said, "I won't be home tonight. I'm going on the Freedom Ride." My parents didn't even know I was on the Freedom Ride. A young lady by the Jean Smith, who was a part of the stand-ins at the movie theaters. Well, her mother worked in Bellmead, and her mother called her one day and said, I need you to come out and help me because they're gonna have a party and I need some help cleaning up. And she went out, and on her way back, the Freedom Rides had already started, and on her way back on the Bellmead bus coming to the downtown area to change to the Jefferson Street bus, something came over on a radio that a white couple had, and it said more Freedom Riders are coming into Mississippi. And she heard the white couple say they ought to kill them all. So she transferred to the Jefferson Street bus, and she got off at 18th and Jefferson. Our office was only half a block from that. She went to the office and she said, are you taking more Freedom Riders? And they said, yes, we've got a group leaving here very shortly. She went home, called her mother, and she said, Mom, I'm going on the Freedom Ride. And her mother simply said, if that's what you think you need to do, then do it. So our parents were really part of that, what I call the godsend movement.
What, in your estimation, was the tipping point for the civil rights movement in Nashville? There was a lot of planning, a lot of resources, a lot of, like you mentioned, the classes that were organized. But was there a certain point where you were able to sort of feel like progress was being made, and do you remember when that was?
1960. Earlier, you were showing some shots from Nashville. For example, the first sit-in started February 1st, 1960. Nashville was February 13th, 1960. We had 100 volunteers to go down on Fifth Avenue, and we sat in at 3 stores. We were very well organized because, for example, we had those who would go into the store and sit in. We'd have those who would stand outside of the store in the event that something happened and they had to go to a telephone or run back to the church, First Baptist Capitol Hill, which was on 8th Avenue, to run back to the church and let them know that the first group had been arrested. And the good thing about Nashville was that, for example, Woolworth, we might, if they had 50 stools, we might have 200 students assigned to Woolworth, so that when the first group was arrested, a second group would come in and take those seats. If the second group was arrested, the third group would come in and take the seats. And so we were so well organized. Even those who said, man, I can't take this. I'm not gonna let somebody spit on me or do things to me. I can't take that. So then the question was asked, do you have transportation? Would you use your car to go to the various schools and pick up students to bring them to the church and then take them back to their universities when it was over with? So those who could not go through that punishment, they played a very important part as well.
I see. So I'm a Nashville native as well. I'm a 30, so I'm a bit of a millennial that takes things for granted that I shouldn't. And one of those things is the fact that you walk around Nashville, you just mentioned Woolworth, there are so many places that that still exist today, businesses that still exist today, that were the genesis of the movement here in Nashville, that you fought to desegregate. Can you talk a little bit about those? You talk about Woolworth. I understand the Walgreens right across the street, which is kind of by Waller's offices, that had a lunch counter that was also a part of the movement. What are some specific areas in Nashville that you all targeted?
Well, Fifth Avenue was the number one place that we targeted because more people shopped on Fifth Avenue. That was where we had the 5 and dime stores, where you could get ice cream cones for a nickel or a dime, or back in the day when a stamp might cost you 3 cents. But the majority, I would say, just to give you an example, we knew that on the 27th of February that there would be a mass arrest because we had the chief of police at the church even before we left the church, so that he would have his policemen there at the different stores to protect us. We had 400 volunteers. John Lewis, a couple of days before the 27th, when we knew that they were going to arrest the students, went down to one of the 5 and dime stores and bought him a 3-piece suit for $15. So he wanted to be in style when he was arrested. Yes, yes.
So we all live in Nashville, and it's no secret that we are experiencing an unprecedented boom in the city of growth, which is great, but it also comes with some problems. And so some would say that gentrification and affordable housing and justice system, all those things are manifestations of the same old problem, much of which we witnessed tonight. As the city continues to grow, do you have any concerns about it becoming the new it city? And what can we share with community leaders, business leaders, about ways in which we can make sure that there aren't groups of communities left behind in Nashville's growth?
Well, the only thing I can say to that is that there are people who are losing their homes because of the tax that's going up on their property. And I've always said to someone, to several people, if you're going to sell your property and they're going to build a high, what they would call tall and skinny,
Yes, sir.
if you can put in the contract that you want one of those apartments on the bottom floor, then if you have a place to move to while they're building that tall and skinny, which it doesn't take very long nowadays,
Right.
then you can move right back into your neighborhood. And when I say that to people, they're very, very surprised about it. I never thought to do that, you know, to see if I could put that in the contract. But we're losing a lot of neighborhoods, and I say neighborhoods where people who know each other, and they don't have to stick their hand out of the window to borrow a cup of sugar from next door. You have to get out and walk. So we're losing that. We're losing the neighborhood, and to me, I think it's we're moving a little bit too fast.